Okay, I want this talk to be about the parable taught in The Wizard of Oz. So this is a metal ad for The Wizard of Oz. Now, why am I saying this is a parable about money? Well, only the first book is germane to this topic. When Baum wrote the book, he was trying to teach kids how money was made by using funny characters. Then he sold a whole lot of books, and so he goes, well, you know, I was trying to do something good, but now I think I'm going to cash in. So he wrote 9 more books about the adventures of Dorothy and Oz, but the very first one was to teach about money. So let's go over some of the stuff that's in the Wizard of Oz. So I want to get here so you can, you know, freeze this at some point to catch everything that I'm saying. So the main people in the Wizard of Oz are, of course, Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Woodsman, the initial witch that dies, and then the evil witch, the good witch of the north, the wizard. There's the Cowardly Lion, the Munchkins, the Flying Monkeys. So we're going to cover this real fast. So like I said, this is a parable about money. So Dorothy gets transported to this with the tornado along with Toto to the magical kingdom of Oz. And her house, remember, the house falls and kills the witch. Well, the witches represent the big eastern and western banks along the coast. And you'll remember this from 2008. What initially brought down, it was Fannie and Freddie Mae, the housing bubble. So what killed the first witch, one of the big banks, was the housing bubble. And there's been housing bubbles all throughout history because that's the main asset most people have. And the other witch is trying to grab her slippers. Now in the book, she's wearing silver slippers. Now they changed it to ruby because I don't think the guy that produced the movie was even probably aware too much about what the actual movie was about. But so they put it was one of the first color movies too for children, so he changed it to ruby slippers. But in the book, she's wearing silver slippers. So the other witch is trying to grab the silver from the dead bank. And then the good witch, Glinda, puts it on Dorothy's feet and says, well, she can't touch you as long as you're wearing the ruby slippers. Well, in the book, she's wearing the silver slippers. And, you know, if you have silver, you're kind of independent from everybody else because you have a real hard asset. And then what else do they tell them? So they say, follow the yellow brick road. And the yellow brick road is gold. Now remember, gold and silver are sold and priced in ounces. You know, OUNCES, but they're when you go to see the price, it's not OU, it's OZ. So that's the Wizard of Oz. And who is the wizard? Well, he lives in the Emerald City, which is Washington, D.C., where you get all the green stuff. And he's the man behind the curtain. You know, he's got a lot of bluster. And you have to go see the wizard, but you stay on the yellow brick road and you're safe as long as you keep your slippers on. So silver and gold leads you to go see the wizard. And you have to go to see a gatekeeper, too, because you just can't approach the president. You have to, you know, lucratively, to get to an audience with the wizard. And the wizard's a lot of bluster. He's kind of a cheerleader. The real money the real people that run the country now, the international bankers. So let's go over some of the protagonists in a little bit breakdown. So it said the Emerald City's Washington, D.C., where all the green stuff comes. The Munchkins, the little midgets, they're the city folk. They're fat, happy, and stupid. They think everything's going good. The Tin Man represents industry. And what is the first thing the Tin Man says to Dorothy? Oil, because the industry runs on oil. And, you know, he's asking for a heart because industry has no heart. And then there's a scarecrow. The scarecrow represents the American farmer. And if he only had a brain, well, the American farmer's actually, at the time, was a real smart guy. And, you know, he was a busy guy too. So, but when he got found out what was going on, he reacted. If one of the scenes in the movie you probably don't even realize is towards the end, the scarecrow is the only one that actually has a gun in his hand. He has, for a while there, he has a pistol. So the wizard's the president. The evil witches are the big banks on the coast, and the good witches are the weak independent banks, primarily in the Midwest. And the flying monkeys were the American Indians. Now, there was all kinds of money problems going on at the time. And there's some other things I want to talk about that were going on in the movie. So before I get to that, so there was the Silver Crisis of 1873. Now, as Dorothy's going to the city of Oz, she goes through 7 halls and 3 flights of stairs. 73. She also goes through a field of poppy and falls asleep. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, if you'll remember, the British got mad at the Chinese because the Chinese didn't want them selling opium to their people. And the British were, you know, that's how they made a whole lot of their money in the drug trade, kind of like the CIA does now in Afghanistan. But so there was the Opium War. So the British kicked the Chinese, basically kicked the Chinese ass and said, you're going to allow us to sell opium to your people. And so they did, and that's when they rented Hong Kong for, you know, the 99-year lease that ran out in 1999. So there was turmoil. Remember, Jackson had killed the international bankers and thrown them out of the country. And they kept trying to get their claws back in. So there was all kinds of, they were trying to stabilize the dollar with various and sundry ways. And this book came out before the Federal Reserve Act. But the principles are kind of the same. And how does the witch die at the end? They throw water on her and she melts. Well, how do you break a recession or a depression? Injections of liquidity, credit or cash. Back then it was cash, but now it would be credit. But liquidity, water, that's the parable of that. So I learned this we spent a whole day on it in a mainline economics class. So it isn't just something I made up. You can look it up. I have a link to it on timbosplace.com, and I've made a couple of videos on other channels about this. And anyway, so the next time you see The Wizard of Oz, keep this in mind, and it'll be enlightening to you. Now, how we got on our present course of money after the Depression, Roosevelt enacted an executive order, and he seized all the gold and put it in Fort Knox. Well, he paid everybody $20 an ounce for it. As soon as they locked up the doors to Fort Knox, he jumped the price up to $32. Well, the difference in that created a thing called the Economic Stability Fund, the ESF. And that grew over the years. You know, initially it was about $10 billion. And then it grew over through the years. Well, when Nixon took us off the gold standard in the early 70s, and we just started printing true fiat currency, and we created a thing called the petrodollar, which I'll cover on another topic in another time. But the Economic Stability Fund, basically, if you look it up in the online right now, we'll say it's got $120 billion and has special drawing rights with the New York Fed for another $100 billion. Well, in reality, they have unlimited money because they can print whatever they want. They were the ones that were buying up the treasury bills from. Remember they were saying that Holland was buying a bunch of billions of dollars worth of treasury bills. Well, it wasn't Holland. It was these guys. They were using a front there. And they were the ones that killed a bunch of the bankers. Remember when there was all these dead bankers right around 2009, because they saw what was going on and they were going to report it, so they had to, kill them. I'm sure they used ICE agents or whatnot to kill them. There was 2 Deutsche Bank executives that died within hours of each other committing suicide in the same building. So, there was that. And then when all those bankers died, the ones that knew what was going on realized, hey, we better just shut up and go with the flow. So, anyway, next time you watch The Wizard of Oz, keep that in mind. It was the very first book. The rest of the books had nothing to do with it. But the very first book was a parable to teach kids how money was made. Thank you. And there's Toto. I'm out.